Good morning, everybody. I'm Gooey Lawrence, and I'm here joined by Paul and Alphinius. We are excited to have you guys here today. Apologize for the small technical hiccup that we had this morning. Luckily, I think we got everything fleshed out, but we should be streaming right now on both
What it
Twitch
was is
and Facebook.
I just couldn't find the stream link. It was nowhere to be found.
All right, everybody. I'm gonna level with you all because I'm not Camera Mandy. I'm not.
Yeah, level
I'm not.
away.
I honestly, I try and nose bomb these things as hard as possible so they don't invite me to come back, and then they keep on doing. So I mean,
Well, it's because we love you, Lawrence. This is, and the wonderful thing about today, you normally in the studio, I have to refrain from enjoying a marvelous libation because Camera Mandy doesn't like it, and also I cannot have a cigar. But today I'm going to do so. But anyway, go ahead and nose bomb away whatever you're going to do.
So not only did Camera Mandy send out the link for everybody to join, I sent him out to two of his, 37 email addresses. I'll give him that. And I sent it to him via text. And 9:58, he's like, "Hey dude, I don't know where this link is at."
Like, well, I did search my email, Lawrence. I will show it to you afterwards. It is not in there. It is not in there. I promise you.
Send a postcard.
Anyway, good morning, friends. It is I, Alphinius Goo, with marvelous Gooey Lawrence, taking over for Camera Mandy and wonderful Paul, who is here. They were going to talk about combat tactics and snails and other strange things today. And because Camera Mandy isn't here, we're going to let out all the stops.
Now, I do have to. I'm very glad to announce the reason Camera Mandy is not here is we have finally fired her. She is no longer with Gooey Cube. She is gone. And I will be taking over all of her further responsibilities. So, 3 cheers for that. She,
I heard she was violent, like with her coworkers.
She's so mean. It's just a consistent steal. Oh, yes, in the face, Paul. No, listen, we are very excited. It is wonderful. And Lawrence, thank you for taking over from Mandy. Mandy is in Disneyland with her marvelous Adam, and they're having a wonderful time down there so far. As far as I know, they flew out, I think, yesterday. And we are pretty excited to talk about these battle tactics and all of this stuff we're going to do. And we got a bunch of things to talk about. But Lawrence is going to kind of run the show, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy my cigar and hear what Paul's got to say. And we're going to talk about how come level 3 is not everyone's level 3, and sometimes level 5, and sometimes level 1. And we'll explain all that craziness, which is all part and parcel to the deal. So anyway, Lawrence, take it over. You got the agenda. Let us go.
Absolutely. So first thing we have a couple of announcements that we need to go ahead and go through. First one that we have is the book club on Discord. Paul, do you mind going ahead and kind of giving us the heads up about that?
Sure. So the idea is there's quite a bit of campaign materials in the world of Zyathé. And as much as I love to show up, Saturday morning and hear Alphinius expound on the wonders of his world, like I just didn't have the background for it. Like he's like, the Zion Doom and the Thule, and like, okay, that's a thing, I'm sure, somewhere. So, I had the books, just like, well, where do you find the time to sit down and read it? So I figured that this would be the opportunity for that. We have a coupon code out there for folks to pick up, was it Cyclopedia Zyathé Volume 1, starting things off. And every week, we're going to have about a 90-page segment of these books that we're going to read. And in the Discord, we have, it's an evolving process. We're figuring it out. But as of right now, we have a beginner forum, which is just completely for new people who are just like, hey, what is a flow stone and how does it work? And then there's an advanced forum where all of the veterans and the elders and the Uber fans can really pour in and just start throwing in details from their entire experience with the Gooey Cube world of Zyathé. So hey, if you want to come in and join and get that foundational campaign knowledge, this is the opportunity for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's already been a little vibrant, right? There's been some wonderful discourse and people making all kinds of conjecture about the 9 and all of this stuff. Has been very, very interesting thus far, Paul. I've been enjoying it myself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the real challenge is kind of marrying. You have the passion, the experience of the people who've been here, and a lot of people who have written or are in the process of writing this world. And then you have a sort of a new generation. Maybe you fell in on Gooey Cube at Gen Con, maybe a friend referred you, and now you're showing up with no background knowledge, no anything. And the question is it worth your time to commit yourself to learning a new campaign setting? Because there are a million of them out there.
It is definitely worth it, Paul.
I think so, and because it's the community that surrounds it. Like if it was just a book sitting on my shelf, it would continue to sit on that shelf with many, many others. But the fact that this is a living, breathing campaign setting that we can grow and influence and interact with, to me, that's worth my time, and that's why I'm here.
Paul, you're marvelous, and we appreciate you very, very much. And I do want to say something real quick about sort of what we're talking about campaign settings, because of course we're right now in the teeth of the Mornwood. Can I talk about this right now, Lawrence, real quick, and just let people know what's going on with that book, or am I breaking your rule?
I mean, it's your company, so like.
Well, I know, but I'm trying to give you latitude. You did a good job putting this wonderful agenda together. Paul and I looked at it. We loved it. Anyway, I'll do it quick. So we are very excited because on Monday we are going to drop the digitals for the Secrets Most Dire player's book for the Mornwood. And so we continue on our path with Darkenhaven. It's going very, very well. We continue on our path with the Mornwood. It's going very, very well. And we want to get this Mornwood stuff out for people here at the beginning part of October and a latter part of September. So I can't wait for you to get this. It's in the same style as Legends, Lore, and Libations, and it's a wonderful, wonderful piece with just a wonderful bit of tale from Andronita Chantencaster, who is our first ever depicted half Feyari, half elf. So it is wonderful. So anyway, that's coming. So let us continue. Anyway, your cat is magnificent, Paul.
All right, I am back as I forgot to unmute myself. So I heard tell of a Discord, or first of all, it was a coupon code. Alphinius, do we know what that coupon code is?
It's in the Discord. So you have to go to the Discord, and
how would people find the Discord?
It's Gooey Cube on Discord. It's pretty easy to find. But I think most people who are watching are not. But if someone doesn't mind, if they could just put a link up in there in the chat, if you're in the chat, if you could just put a link up and help us out with that, that'd be wonderful.
And then for everything also, guys, the Gooey Game Masters Den of Enlightenment on Facebook, everything is like posted and it's really great inside of there. So if your first step is like, what is Discord? What do I do? Go to that Facebook group first, and you're definitely going to find somebody who's going to go over and help get you in there.
Absolutely. All right. So lead on, Sir Lawrence. It sounds so good.
Sir Lawrence does sound better than Gooey Lawrence, I feel like. I'm going to go ahead and change that up while you guys talk about the next thing. So now we have 10 minutes allocated for giveaways and promotions. So we got Legends, Lore, Libations.
Yep. So somewhere in the course of this stream, Lawrence is going to ask you to put up some codes. You all know how this works. And when you put up the codes, you're going to have a chance to win some cool stuff. We're giving away that wonderful mat that is Darkenhaven on it. That's made of the mouse pad material, right, Lawrence? That's you know what I'm talking about with that.
No, and then not in a little bit.
So you changed it to Sir Lawrence. I see that. Magnificent.
I did change. I liked Sir Lawrence better, but no, I don't know what your giveaway is. That's totally
okay.
It's this. All
you. Most people have seen it. So we took Darkenhaven and we put it on this mat that is bigger than I can stretch my hands out. About probably 3 feet wide, 2.5 feet wide, by about 2 feet tall, something like that. And it's got Darkenhaven on it. And it's made entirely of this wonderful mouse pad like material, and it's perfect for behind your Game Master screen. It's just perfect. So we're giving one of those away, and then we're also doing and you get entries to win. Everyone knows this. And then we're also, don't forget the snail contest, the Name the Snail contest. You can do that in the Gooey Game Masters Den. You can also do it on our Facebook page. And I think you can also do it in the Discord, but I'm not 100% sure about that one. I don't know if Mandy put it up there or not. But you can go in and name this goofy snail and win a portrait of the snail. And the snail is very cool, so a lot of people are doing it because it's a wonderful, wonderful little thing. What else, Lawrence? Is there anything else on there I'm missing?
I believe so. Real quick question. When you post up inside the Gooey Game Masters Den of Enlightenment, who's like oh, here we go. I found it. I was trying to find your guys's things that way I can show everybody. So let's see here.
Oh, find the snail, put it up there, or the
Yep.
Oh, magnificent. Yes. So Lawrence, Lawrence keeps tabs on us, but not like camera Mandy, right? So she's all over it like flies. Never mind, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, no, I keep tabs and I keep plugged in and stuff like that. But obviously, I am much more loosely associated with Gooey Cube and whatnot. So when they call me in to do these things, it's definitely
Yes,
like,
you're also my godson, so it's
that helps out too.
It's a familial thing, right?
Oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
so sometime during the stream, just be prepared. Lawrence is going to give you a couple codes that you have to put in. You have to put it in a certain period of time because poor Autumn has to go through the chat and compile them all and all of that kind of stuff. Yes, there it is, the snail contest right there. So I bumped that a couple of times, and quite a few people have put in their snaily names, and it's a very snooty snail. Do you see that, Paul? You see you can see that that snail has a lot of haughtiness, don't you think?
Oh, I answered.
I know you did. You made me laugh.
What are these things for?
It's a Zyathé snail, dude. Just let it be. It's wonderful. I mean, this is marvelous.
Sensory organs.
Marvelous Benjo made this. Someday I'm going to do a flora and fauna book for the Westward, and that snail will definitely be on the cover.
That thing's crazy.
Mm-hmm. But
I like it. I'm just curious as to what they're for.
Well, I think it's kind of like snail sensing devices, or maybe his little hands, right? Maybe he reaches out and grasps bugs with them or whatever, right? In another picture, the snail is holding a staff, but we do not have wizard snails in the world of Zyathé. No, we do not.
Wizards.
Yes, that right there. Yes. No, there are no wizard snails in the world of Zyathé. No. And all of you people in the frigging chat who are saying, yes, we do. No, we don't.
Give the people what they want.
Hey, shout out to Kay.
Oh,
Awesome. Appreciate
Carrie,
you, boss.
thank you.
Oh man. All right. That thing's gonna haunt my dreams, for an extended period of time, I'm sure. All right.
So does that cover enough on the giveaways and all of that stuff? So just we can't forget that sometime here in the stream here towards the middle to the end, we got to put in the codes so we can get that done. And Mandy has those in that agenda, Lawrence, that you have, right?
Yep. So we got Legends Lore Libations. I got the code for that. We have the Gamer's Mousepad. That will be 2 different codes. So definitely just keep an eye out for that, and I'll try and make it pretty obvious as we go through. The Sticky Bundle promotion.
Oh, so that is what we're on the website right now. If you want to get it, you can go to the website, check out the Sticky Bundle, and it's a good value. It's a very good value. It's got the new Genzicon adventure in it that we just came out with. So if you got a chance to go check that out, go take a peek at that, and you'll get Darkness and Genzicon as part of it, which is wonderful.
And that's going to be at gooeycube.com. As you go through there, I'm checking on the website real quick to see if I can go through and pull it up so that we guys can all see it. Man, he's got so much more stuff on here since the last time I was on here.
Lawrence, we have what is called a very broad product line. Well, while you're doing that, then I get to talk about something because I'm very excited.
Yeah, you get to talk about anything that you want.
All right. Well, over the last couple of days, my friends, listen, I want you to hear me. Over the last couple of days, I've had a number of conversations with Luke Gygax about our upcoming thing we're doing in November with him called Guys and Gags, which has been on the agenda for the last almost year. Oh, there it is. Paul has one. Yes, Darkness and Genzicon, Paul. I see it. And so we've been. Oh yeah. So Lawrence is showing off. Yeah, this is our new website with all the stuff. But anyway. So it looks like we are going to have a number of fairly famous personages, quite famous personages actually, who are going to have their portraits as part of the Guys and Gags adventure. And I'm not announcing who those people are yet, but I think when you hear about them, you're going to be like, whoa. Yeah, Paul's got the Darkness and Genzicon module there. So gooeycube.com, my friends, if you haven't gotten it yet. This is a magnificent tale about the origin of the Oculix. All right.
Awesome. And then I think the last things that we have on here is limited edition.
Hold on, look at that. Is that not that is magnificent, Lawrence? Is that not?
That's great.
Yeah, the Oculix. So I'll just tell a little about it since we've got it here.
While he's doing that, I have a quick costume change before we get into the next segment. So take it away.
Do what you got to do.
Awesome.
So I don't know what he's doing with the costume change. It's making me nervous, but we're gonna let it happen here, friends. Anyway, so the wonderful thing about Darkness and Genzicon is not just that it's tags on with Genzicon and there's a wonderful tale and a great adventure, I really believe, but it also tells the how and why of the Oculix and why they exist today in the modern times of Zyathé, what they are, what they came from, and it's a really fun experience to understand what these creatures are and why they're so scary and what they've sort of come from, because they are actually a tool of war for use in the tunnels beneath the surface that were made by the Eternic Empire. So they are bad dudes, as they say, So, and while we're talking about that being bad dudes, that is, so both Paul and Lawrence serve in the military, and the reason why we wanted to do this sort of battle tactics thing is because we wanted to sort of talk about this idea that there is a very great difference in tables in terms of application of tactics in combat. And this is why I say all the time, my friends, and I mean this to the bottom of my heart, that one table's level 3 party is not another table's level 3 party. And the dramatic difference between one table and another is significant. And you have to, as a game master, you have to understand that and mitigate that. Because if you just take an adventure, Lady Hawk, thank you. If you don't take that into account, either sometimes you're going to just overpower your party, or your party is going to just overpower your module. And so you have to look at stats and monster quantities and all of this stuff. You have to look at that as more guidelines, because if you don't, you'll end up being frustrated because, oh man, I bought this adventure from someone and it really was too easy for my party or whatever, or it was way too hard and blew them away. Paul, you know what I'm talking about, yes?
Absolutely.
Yes, this is the truth, right? So as a game master, it is pivotally important that you balance for your party. And again, because one party of 5 people at your table who've been playing for 20 years, 3 of them who have been in the military, right? They never fireball the rogue, right? They always are coordinated, right? All of this stuff is very different than a table of the same number of folks, same level, who are new to the game, right? And kind of goofballs. It's a whole different thing, right? And so, when you blow up your own party on a consistent basis, you're probably not that good at combat, and you need to account for that as a game master, right? So friendly fire, right, Paul? That's what. He did. Look at this costume. Damn, we are really.
All right, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and hijack this from Alphinius. Appreciate it for those nice comments. So I figured we needed an appropriate look for this discussion. And before we get into it, Paul, why don't you go ahead and give us just a little bit of what your background is? Give us a little introduction as far as who you are. This really just describes the difference between the units that Paul and I were in inside the military. But Paul, go ahead and explain to you who you are as we get into applying military operation planning into Dungeons and Dragons. So Paul, all right. Who are you? What's your experience?
So I went through ROTC, Texas A&M University, and I commissioned as a second lieutenant, United States Army, in a quartermaster corps. I got out in 2019, medically retired as a captain. I had one deployment to Afghanistan in 2010, and I've served in Korea, I've served in Italy, New Mexico, a number of different stations, and I retired medically here out of Fort Hood, Texas, which is where I currently am.
Nice.
So logistics branch, I was a staff officer. I was out there on the road, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, running convoys. But that was in my earlier portion of my officer track. As I went on and experienced, I became a staff guy. I was there in the planning cells. I was there, making sure all the beans and bullets and gas and repairs were done. So my focus was primarily logistics. Mm-hmm. And that's the saying: amateurs study tactics, experts, professionals study logistics. So that's my experience. I'm not a grass grower, a killer. So I'm gonna pass that over to.
I'm gonna pass it over to Lawrence.
Hey folks, so you guys know I am Sir Lawrence. So my background is I joined up outside the military in 2010. Paul, I had another question. When did you actually get into Dungeons and Dragons?
I love it. Okay, I have the exact answer for you. The Diablo 2 Collector's Edition box had a second edition module and a set of dice in there. So when I busted open Diablo 2 Collector's Edition, I'm like, wow, I have a module, I have dice. Let me see if I have some friends who play D&D. And I found a guy. I started playing with his family and fell in love. And that was about the time 3rd edition launched, and I was all in. I would run like 48-hour marathon gaming in my driveway. I would haul out our dining room table, and me and about half a dozen other friends would all just sit out there, in the middle of northeastern Pennsylvania and just game for days on end.
No matter what base you are on or a deployment zone or wherever, if you look hard enough, you will find a little group of guys playing D&D or some other, card game or something like that, on base and stuff. So definitely it's one of those things where I think it always surprises people when like you find out that the military actually has like a really rich audience for role-playing games. Because essentially most of our training is just real life LARPing.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Yeah, no joke.
So my background, most of you guys kind of probably know me as I've kind of been in and out. So I'm actually what's called a Special Forces Green Beret. I enlisted in 2010. So that's one of the big differences, that Paul is the guy that tells me where we're going, and I'm the guy who figures out how we're going to get there. As far as officers versus enlisted, I have 2 deployments to Afghanistan. I got 2 to Ukraine, and I have 1 to Poland. And like Paul, there was a point where I transitioned from being a ground pounder, from kicking indoors and doing all that, to actually being on staff. And being on staff was such an amazing opportunity to actually see all the different aspects of planning, interpersonal communication, and everything that goes into making a military operation work. And I was kind of curious, ask you, Paul. I have found over playing with Alphinius and different game masters, I think a lot of people think the military guys are going to be like big murder hobos and stuff like that. And it's not even so much that, it's that I enjoy the planning process and I have the most fun. I think this kills Alphinius because I don't think it really works in his brain. The most fun combat encounter that I have is the one that is so boring, where it's where we've set it up. We know the weaknesses of the enemy. We have things set up. It's maybe a couple of rounds, but at no point is anybody close to dying. It is just like, it's so like, and for me, that is so much fun when I know that like we planned this out like correctly. It's definitely like that Hannibal, like, oh, I love it when a plan comes together. Like that is the most fun that I have in D&D, is like coming up with the plan.
Well, we're not in the business of fair fights. Like if you're in a fair fight, you did something wrong. Like we are in the philosophy of fight smarter, not harder. And if that means leveraging all of your abilities, all of your information gathering to come up with a solid plan that people come together and execute well, and if the dice are kind, then that's a beautiful day. Like I love encounters where it's like, well, we didn't really know they were hostile. They died before they even had a chance to do anything.
And so what we're going to talk about today is essentially what principles of military operation planning can you apply at your table game? Because there is nothing worse. Hey, appreciate you, MR Ribbonface. Did I get that right? No, hold on. Where did I get Ribbon? MR Blawface.
Mr. Blawface.
Mr. Blawface. That makes way more sense. That's why we have Paul here.
Should be Sir Blawface.
Probably.
Thank you, Mr. Blawface. You are marvelous.
Because there's nothing more frustrating, I think, for players, but also for a DM as they've gone through and they've created, all this tension. They've, planned out all these different hooks, whether or not it's going to be a event like, what's the farm called in the GUI module 1 again, Alphinius?
Wait. Sorry.
The butcher farm. That's what it is.
Sorry.
You've set everything up for the butcher farm. You're good to go. You've got all these different hooks. People are excited. And then all of a sudden the group comes to a screeching halt as all of a sudden everyone starts discussing like, okay, how are we going to approach this? And you end up as a DM, as you're watching what looks like an unproductive conversation, where people are talking in circles and this and that. And then, the other thing that gets really rough too, is when you start seeing the interpersonal communication draw down, start people getting offended because people aren't getting their ideas recognized and everything. And that's one of the things that I definitely think that having a military, individual at your table can kind of help out, as they bring into not necessarily like, hey, this is how we're going to set up this L-shaped ambush. And this is, it's not so much that, because one of the things that most people don't know is Dungeons and Dragons is a role-playing game. It is not a military simulation game.
Yeah, I want to interrupt you for a second. This is the truth, right? And if you want to play a damn war game, go play a damn war game, right? Because D&D is not a very good war game simulation system at all, right? In fact, it really it's not good, and it's not designed to be that, because it's designed to be relatively quick, right? It's not designed to take hours and hours, right? Paul, you've seen these you played these war games, I assume, yes, that you can literally play, a serious combat for eight hours, right?
Sure.
Just go, but yeah,
it's really you honestly have to look at, when you look at D&D and you understand that the system and the mechanics are there to support role playing, it changes your outlook on how you approach it. Now, that doesn't mean that, and that's where it's when you look at your combat and you say, hey, how does this combat situation, and that's where I think for me as a DM, where I'm like, I don't have an issue having no combat. If I have all these different situations and stuff planned out, and the group is approaching it from a role-playing perspective, and they end up skipping it through, but the role play and the story building and the fun was accomplished, then you're good. Like, then you met the intent.
It's all collaborative storytelling anyway. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you show up into an epic encounter and you utterly faceplant and your pantaloons are around your ankles, and then somebody trips over you and the big bad evil guy like slips on his own, those sorts of things have value. You're not here to win the game. You're here to play it. Mm-hmm. And so people.
And I'm sorry, Paul. No. Just stay with Paul for a second. I'm just going to say something. I don't want to go back to him. Anyway, the idea that the combat can actually be part of the story is actually a wonderful thing, right? So keep going. You on a great track. I just wanted to add to that combat is actually a part of the story. It's not an event. It's part of the tale. Go ahead.
Yep.
Please.
And you can see it as an absolute value. Epic success, very fun. Epic failure, very fun. With the right mindset. Mm-hmm. And that's why people, like, if you get all, if your egos are on the line, you get heated, and you're like, well, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it, and you're not playing your character right, and you're missing the point. This isn't about winning per se.
And so that's what the goal of our kind of conversation that Paul and I are going to try and bring our various experiences to is, hey, how do we avoid getting stuck in just this planning sinkhole of indecisiveness that almost always ends with whoever's the most impatient player, my dad normally, rushing in, and so we're going to be bringing up some of the different aspects. We're going to give you guys some things to think about, and hopefully give you guys some key points that you can kind of take back to your players and be able to, because I think one of the things too is that sometimes player indecisiveness can come from when they're continually arguing about the plan and they're continually discussing and everything like that. It's because they don't feel good about the plan. They don't feel like stuff's been addressed. So if you guys have an outlet like, hey, here's the bare bones minimum of what we need to go execute a plan. Do we have all those boxes checked off? Yes, we do. Cool. Let's go over and let's go do it. Knowing that we did our due diligence into, preparing for whatever it is that's in front of us. And one of the reasons why I get, when I'm inside of a gaming situation, stuff like that, one of the reasons why I really dig into the planning process, and I kind of sometimes will go through and be like, hey group, like, let's make sure we're on the same page real quick and get moving, is that I see that as being respectful to the DM also. The DM planned out this whole background and everything. They put all these different things in there. And I want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence to be able to discover the different things that they gave me in order to prepare for this encounter, whether or not it be role-playing encounter, combat encounter, or anything else.
Yeah, no, Lawrence, that's a really good point, right? Is that, again, as we were talking about with Paul earlier, this idea that combat is actually part of the tale really can bring so much to it. Because as you know, and Lawrence is a little paranoid at times because I do throw a lot of curveballs in combat. I do it on
super paranoid at times. You ever see me? I mean,
I have little workarounds that they might be able to get away with doing. If they did something else, they could cut the combat short. Those kinds of things happen on semi-frequent basis, right? So that actually adds to the tale, right? If there's a gem that if they destroy it, they destroy the two golems that are fighting with the big bad evil guy, right? That helps, right? But they got to figure out that they got to take out those two gems, right? Or whatever it happens to be. But the fun of combat in the adventure should not be marred, as Lawrence is saying, by analysis paralysis where they're sitting around for 2 hours trying to figure out the plan. And part of that, if you're a player watching and you're sort of a leader player, you can help that by sort of leading it forward and pushing it forward. And so that for me, that is a wonderful part of the strategy. Keep going.
So quick point. So like you were saying earlier, not all level 3s are created equally, not all level 1s. You as a DM have to know where your players are. You have to coach, teach, mentor them. Like, okay, so in the beginning, I want you to work together. I want to facilitate that. I want to encourage that. I want to reward that. I want you to learn your abilities, learn the game system, learn your teamwork, and then like come together as an amazing unit. And then once you've done that, I need to challenge that. I need to keep it interesting. I need to break up your playing. I need to take away your toys. I need to make it harder on you. Otherwise, you're going to lose interest. So as a DM, it's up to you to be a part of an educational arc with your players. Are you building them up, or are they built and now you are letting them run free, achieving their maximum potential?
Absolutely. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share a slide. So I had 2 disclaimers. One, obviously, I just wanted to get it out there that Dungeons and Dragons is not a military simulation game, but it's not a combat simulation. It's really all there to support role playing. Second thing that I just wanted to bring out, everything that Paul and I are going to be talking about today is open source. None of it is top secret, anything. So if anybody is like, oh, you're putting out, it's like all this stuff's on the internet. You can find it in the Ranger handbook. I've taught it to, yeah.
So, but I will tell you one, if you're a player watching, I want you to know something. This is really important because I have played in literally, it's got to be thousands of games. And I have game mastered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games, maybe thousands of games, probably thousands of games. Anyway, one of the things that is most underutilized by players, if you're a player, listen to this, use cover. Hide behind the stalactite, right? Get behind the tree. Use cover and improve your armor class. Put that in your mind. Remember it. Tell your other players. It will help you live longer.
Terrain.
And that's
we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
We are going to get to that.
IPV, baby.
The hope for most of this is that especially as a DM, if I can see how my players are planning and if I can see what advantages they're trying to take care or they're trying to produce, that gives me the opportunity to provide those advantages. If they're sitting there like, hey, we want to do an ambush, we want to do this, we want, hey, we want to go through and want to engage these guys from afar, I can go through and think of all that stuff that I didn't generate up, ahead of time because I'm not a supercomputer. And I can say, okay, cool. Let me make sure that this has some aspects in it so that way they can go through and engage in that and they can get rewarded for doing their plan. So with that, let me go ahead and pull up my little screen here. We're going to start off at Starfleet level, and then we're going to bring it down to what actually is probably relevant for your actual tabletop game. So this right here is what's called the military decision-making process. This is what used for, by the way, Paul and I are from 2 different sections of the Army, just so you guys know. So I'm from Special Operations. He's from what we call regular Army. So what's fun about it is that I actually have a ton of experience at working at the Starfleet level because ODAs bring all that stuff down. So what's nice is that I sent out this email of hey, here's kind of what we're looking at. And Paul sent me back an entire dissertation. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is actually going to be a pretty in-depth analysis.
And listen, just so you all understand, we're not going to get so granular that you all are going to be falling asleep. We promise. We actually think this is going to be a lot of fun. So
Alphinius is here.
Yeah, don't be falling asleep right now on us. This is actually cool. I had a chance to kind of pre-read some of this stuff. I think you're going to like it a lot. All right, let's go.
So this right here, we're just going to go through and brush through this because it takes a week to teach this, and even then, I'm sure Paul can attest.
So,
to
Lawrence,
this.
I'm asking you a question. When we're done with this, are all the people watching going to be, qualified to go out and deal with the bad guys?
Everybody actually gets a real life level in Rogue Mastermind after this episode, so it's actually pretty sweet.
All right, Paul, here we go. We're going to teach it. All right, let's go, boys.
So essentially, when you have your Starfleet level command, when you have your high level command, when they're trying to figure out what are we doing here, this is the process that they do. You have your receipt of the mission, which is where you're getting your initial instructions. This would essentially just be your quest giver. This would be at some point after you've killed the rats in the basement. You have the mentor Gandalf, Alphinius, Alfabio, whoever it is, walks on in.
Damn it.
They walk on in and they, say, hey, just so you know, the entire world is about to end and you teenagers have to save it. That's what you're thinking about when you're getting this receipt of the mission. Then you have your mission analysis. And this is where you and your group are going over and you're talking to different people. You're gathering information using all those different techniques that you have. From there, you have your course of action development, which is the very simple. We're figuring out what are we going to go do.
Let me jump in on mission analysis real quick.
Do your thing, man.
Great. So, I mean, don't just constrain yourself to, okay, I'm bribing guards. I'm talking with nobles. I'm hiring street thugs. I'm a ranger doing track checks. I'm casting divination. I'm casting speak with dead to interrogate a corpse. I'm remote seeing, scrying. I'm detecting magic. I'm like all the different tools.
I'm having a beer with the weird old guy at the bar
to acquire information. What are my enemies' vulnerabilities? What are their abilities? I'm making knowledge checks. I'm not metagaming because I'm a responsible player, but I'm using every tool at my disposal to get as much information as I can because that information is power.
And mission analysis changes throughout your entire process of this. And that's one of the things that's really important to, as a group, just to be able to as long as everybody understands what the mission is, it actually gives a much better, ability for people to basically go on over and execute stuff without having to like get group approval for everything, because everybody's intent is the same. Also, Alphinius, I don't know if you know this, about half your chat is somehow tied into either lots of Call of Duty or the military and something with all the different references.
Oh, this like I said to you, Lawrence, I actually thought this was going to be really fun for people. And if you look at this, my friends, this is the planning process for any adventurous mission. They go through this. They may bumble their way through it. They may buffoon their way through it. But this is pretty much what every adventure party is going to do when they're getting ready. I mean,
it's actually what all businesses do as well.
Yeah, yes. And what Paul said is right? If you're doing it right, you've got a host of actions that you can put into play. And Lawrence, you know this through the years because we played together so much, right? Mm-hmm. I am blessed with a table, and it's a little bit of a curse too. I am blessed with a table of people who are very experienced. They are very skilled, and they are hard to pull one over on. Mm-hmm. And it is. This is why you have to measure your table. It's so important because if I played like that with a group of newbies, they would just get wiped. They would just get destroyed. You know what I'm talking about, Paul? You know what I'm speaking of, yes?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So as I pull this thing back up, there we go. Cool. So that's what you're looking at for mission analysis. For your COA development, this is where everybody's going through and they're pitching their different ideas. They're saying, hey, what's your guys' idea? Come up with a team. Alphinius, anytime that I've ever played with them, has always played a roguish type character. And he always has his own course of action. That's like, how am I going to go through and sneak around? And it's really nice to be able to have a structure and be like, hey, you guys come up with the stealth plan. You guys come up with the Leroy Jenkins plan. You guys come up with the magic plan. You guys come up with the
Leroy Jenkins plan. That was wrong. That would never work. It doesn't work. Keep going.
From there, you go into COA analysis or your wargaming. This is where you guys come together as a group and you guys are able to go through and you're actually pitch out, what is, how these things are going to go through and come to fruition and come into effect. You go into your COA comparison, which is where you present them all. And then generally when you get into COA approval, you say, hey, I like this part of these guys' plan. I like that part of those guys' plan. I like this part of this plan. Let's go ahead and put it together in your hybrid plan. And then you get into your order, production, dissemination, and transition. So that's kind of Starfleet level. And so now we're going to take it down one level.
So before we jump, Paul, you got anything you want to throw in here on this? Anything you want to add to this this first before we move to the next level?
So with the military, we have the benefit of a formalized hierarchy of who's in charge, who are the subordinates, who has the ultimate say, the ultimate authority. In a Dungeons and Dragons party, what you're going to have is a bunch of individuals with their own interpersonal tendencies, and we nerd gamers sometimes will let our egos run the better of us, and a lot of times you can have conflicts between players, where it becomes sort of a sniffing contest, and at that point it just becomes a matter of understanding that players value agency. as pretty much their number one thing. The quickest way to make a player angry is to take away their free will and say, well, this is what you do. So whenever they feel like that's being infringed upon, they're going to get defensive. And defensive players are not going to mesh together and not going to think beyond their own immediate injury. So, I mean, oftentimes, if you come to an impasse, it's like, well, I want to do this. Well, I want to do that. I mean, eventually there's going to be that breakout of, well, okay, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You guys have fun. Do whatever you want to do. I've already told you what I'm doing. Follow me or step aside because here I go. And, and that's what happens. I mean, that's reality sometimes.
And us speaking the truth, as long as that doesn't happen all the time, as long as that's sort of once in a while, right? And you got a good party of players at your table who are generally trying to work together most of the time, but sometimes they come into a little conflict like that. That's probably okay because it's part of the tale, right? But if you can give them some tools to aid their decision-making process, which is kind of what we're doing today, right? Give them those tools, you might mitigate some of that disagreement as Paul is bringing up because it's very important. Continue, Lawrence. We're good.
I'm going to go in. I'm going to field a question because I think it's an important thing. What are your guys' tools as dungeon masters or as players during a planning process of a table? What do you do when all of a sudden you watch the conversation shift to this is now no longer about finding the best plan for the party? This is about two individuals who are basically trying to prove the other person wrong or trying to be right, essentially. What are some of your tools for diffusing that situation rather than letting players go through and fight out over, kind of like that personal ego aspect?
Paul, you want to go first?
Sure. So what I like to do is I use the insight check. And the insight check to me is that little bright idea in the back of your head that is kind of the placeholder for the DM's opinion. So I've heard their courses of action. I've heard their plans. I'm like, okay, well, roll an insight check. Let's see, a wisdom. Oh, that's 20. Great. This particular element of that plan really makes sense to you. That's kind of me as a DM saying, well, I agree with this guy. And as the adjudicator of this, if you go with his plan, you're more likely to find success. Like if I want to keep things moving along and I want to give a subtle hint, that's what I use the insight check for. Is what is that little voice of brilliance in the back of your head that recognizes good ideas and bad ideas saying to you?
That's excellent, Paul, and I agree with you. It is a wonderful tool. Now, Lawrence knows this about me. I have forever always had an NPC in the party.
Yep.
It is one of my strategies for helping to push the narrative. All right. And sometimes, and I do roles to kind of think about how that NPC is going to act and think and all of that stuff. Sometimes that NPC will give bad information. And sometimes that NPC will give good information. But I have at times, and it's not very often, again, because I'm blessed and cursed with this magnificent table of players that really is very good, right? But sometimes that NPC can get mad. That NPC can get in someone's face and say, this is stupid, right? And so there is always the opportunity. And if you can handle it, in some game masters, it's too much for them, right? It's just too much to handle running an NPC at the same time. But I'll give you a quick thing that you can do. I run the NPC's personality, but I let someone else at the table roll their initiatives and roll their attacks and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not necessarily always doing that. Sometimes I will run the NPC fully, but a lot of times I do that. But an NPC combined with insight checks, combined with other sorts of tools, which maybe Lawrence has one, can really help to mitigate this conflict, which can be really problematic. I have seen tables where people literally got up and walked. They left. And your father one time did that, if you remember, Lawrence.
Only once?
Only once. You're a bleep, dude. You're a bleep. You're a bleep, dude. Bleep, bleep, you, dude. You're a bleep, dude.
To be fair, I mean, maybe just a little bit. So one of the things that I go through and that I do is once I hit this area, this is no longer a problem in the game. This now crossed the threshold to where it's identified as an interpersonal communication issue between these two people. So one of the things that I'll do as, the group counselor, when I'm DMing and stuff like that, is I'll go through and I'll have somebody state exactly what they want. And while that's happening, I'm on the back end trying to understand how they are feeling and where what they want and what they're feeling aren't necessarily matching up with. But having somebody clearly state out, like, hey, give me the bullet point version of how you think that this encounter should go. And then I'll have another player do the same thing. And generally, if you can get people to stop reacting to each other's words and clearly use that I statement as far as like, I think we should do this, a lot of times you can go through and get people to line up and be able to move forward from there.
Yes, it's very good, Lawrence. Paul, you agree. I heard you say
it. Absolutely. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, if you're sitting out there and you have a little bit of this at your table, you just got 3 really good ideas to mitigate these problems. Really.
I just came up with one more. Great. Sometimes if 2 people are kind of frictioning against each other, put the focus back on you. I mean, you're the dungeon master. Put a ticking clock on it while they're busy arguing with them and being like, okay, well, now you see that the patrol is beginning to wander off. Or now, you hear some violent shouting as they appear to have, spotted something off in the distance. Like, change the dynamic to where it's no longer do they have the luxury of long stand planning.
Yes.
FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, hey, there's an opportunity now, and a good plan executed now is better than the perfect plan executed too late. So, that's not always an option, but if you can put a ticking clock on them and force a more rapid response, they're much less likely to get caught up on the minutia.
It's very good. And Lawrence, I've done that to you all a few times because the ticking clock is magnificent. It is it is a wonderful now you got 4 friends. You got 4 tools that really good. Really good.
So that
by the way, just make sure #LLL to enter the Legends, Lore, and Libations giveaway. This is the messed up Legends, Lore, and Libations book that was all screwed up from the printer, signed by all the Goo crew and everybody else. And it's really a cool collector's item. There's only one in the world. I don't even have one, which kind of frustrates me if you want to know the truth. But but no, you will have the only one of these that exists if you win this. And we're giving it away in the same way we've done it in the past. Over the next few weeks, you'll get more chances to enter, and then we'll give it away. So put #LLL to get a chance to win that. Go ahead, Lawrence. Continue.
Oh, absolutely. So what we just covered in that MDMD process, that's the Starfleet level aspect of what a party could go through and start thinking about, like, what's our purpose here? What are we trying to go through and accomplish? What are our key tasks and stuff like that? That's something that probably, Paul and I would probably enjoy doing at a table together. However, that's a very lengthy. I mean, that MDMD process can actually take days for a real life mission. If you're doing it properly. I've had to do it in a shorter. Generally, I think the shortest I've ever done MDMP properly has been multiple hours. On the flip side of that, there is something called the troop leading procedures, which is used at a much smaller, for smaller groups and stuff. This is something where, like, our 12-man ODAs, a platoon of about 30 guys will go through and get this procedure. I'm going to read through them really quickly, and then we're going to go through and we're going to hit specific points when I'm coming on back.
And Lawrence, if we have questions too, let's make sure we give chance, folks. If anybody's got a question as we're going through,
please,
let's make sure we take care of those.
Nerf herder, it's called the Space Force. So, so again, in the troop leading procedures, you have receiving the mission, you have initiating a warning order, you have make a tentative plan, you have start necessary movement, reconnaissance, complete the plan, issue the order, supervise and refine. So moving through this, as it goes through and applies at a actual table as a table, and as you guys can kind of work on it, you have your initial receipt of the mission, which is normally, if it's Alphinius' table, he finds like one character and he gives them like this nugget of information. And then we like to play a game saying, how long can you hold on to that nugget of information before you tell anybody else at the table? That's your son, 100%.
Typically happens with just about everyone around the table, because again, that just adds marvelously to the tale, right? It really does. So keep going, Lawrence. This is great. I hope people are enjoying this. I think this is what Paul, Lawrence, you all. This is fantastic.
Now, one of the things that I think about when I'm thinking about receiving the mission, especially in the aspects of a tabletop game, is you need to figure out like what your key tasks are and what you want your end state to be. And me as a player, and this question I'm going to send over to Alphinius, when you're thinking up of like a quest or when you're writing it in for Gooey Cube and stuff like that, what are some things that players can do to make sure that they have the full context of what the end of the quest looks like? Like what's their, if you go into a dungeon, that you don't win by going into the dungeon, you go by rescuing somebody, you go by getting this thing. So kind of like, what's your baseline as far as like what could players feel good as far as like a checklist is saying, okay, hey, we got this information, this feels like the complete information, we feel comfortable moving forward. Alphinius, what do you got?
So my tales are always oniony, right? They have multiple layers. I do that on purpose. And so typically what's going to happen is welcome friends, hello, we are glad to have you here. So when we create these layers, right? What I want to do is to give the party first whatever their primary mission is, but then there's going to be deviations off of that, right? Subquests, if you will. But sometimes they think the main quest is the main quest, but in reality, it is not, right? And that's the curveball that you throw at them to try to give them that. But if I can focus on one thing, yes, you are absolutely right, Adam. I completely agree. So reconnaissance is often not, hello, my dear, it's good to see you. Reconnaissance is often neglected. And I do not mean letting your rogue go off and being a goofball.
Reconnaissance and aspect, I'm going to kick this over to Paul too. Reconnaissance does not mean sneaking through the bushes, and moving that thing. Paul, you want to go ahead and aspects or highlight some aspects as far as like what different forms of recon look like?
So actually, I have a good story for this. At this last Gen Con, I was playing at a table, and our ranger did some tracking around the area, and they said, okay, we have all these footsteps leading into this cave. I'm like, okay, we could just go in that cave, but hey, wizard, you have a familiar, right? It's like, yeah, I'm familiar. What is it? Well, it's like a little salamander. I'm like, okay, well, how about you have your innocuous little salamander walk in there? I'm like, okay, well, then what do I do? It's like, well, you can see through your familiar's eyes, right? It's like, I can? I'm like, yeah, look, read what familiars do. It's like, oh, wow, okay, yeah. So my salamander crawls in there, and what do I see? And the DM just dejectedly is like, well, you see, like, there's like 5 guys, and they're setting up an ambush, and they're on a ledge, and this is how they're arrayed. He's like, oh, thank you for the information. So little salamander comes back out, and we're like, okay, well, what do we do? And I'm like, well, how about if we gather a bunch of brush, and you have produce flame, right? Well, okay, we'll make a brush fire. You have a gust of wind. We'll just smoke them out. It'll be hilarious. They won't even know what's happening. And we actually ended up scrapping that plan. I think the druid just turned into a spider, and then nonsense occurred. But like, everybody focuses on damage spells. Well, how many d6s can I throw? But utility spells can be so powerful in shaping the battlefield, controlling the battlefield, and allowing you to prepare for what you need. Like, are there elemental protections you need? Are there elemental assets you need? I'm a big capabilities guy. Like, how do we face, and I mentioned this earlier, or not earlier, but there's something called TTPs.
Tactics, techniques, procedures.
That's the acronym.
Well done.
It's like, if this, then that. If we encounter an invisible foe, do we have Glutidus? We have fairy fire? Do we have a bag of flour we can scatter on the ground? When we encounter ranged enemies, when we encounter tremor sense, when we encounter mind control, when we encounter, like, there are different variables that you as an adventurer need to reasonably be able to address, or else you're going to be defeated.
Yes, Paul, can I jump in? I want to say this. Players, Paul is right. Think about who you might be coming up against, or you're most likely to come up against, because that can often dictate the spells that you're thinking of bringing, right? What kind of ammunition you're putting in your quiver that's going to be the first arrow that you pull out, right? These kinds of things make for a more successful endeavor, right? And so as a player, as you're thinking about that, and what is wonderful, yes, hashtag maps. That's for the Dark and Haven placemat behind your screen. Look, Paul is doing it. Good job, Paul. Hashtag maps. But that players and game masters, I encourage you, teach your players to do this. It will make them better players. And yes, it will make it harder on you. But you know what? I love the challenge. And I think most game masters love the challenge of playing with players that are really on their game. It just elevates the whole thing so much more than a bunch of murder hobos that don't know what they're doing and are just, sort of Now, I'm not saying that isn't fun sometimes. Anyway, Lawrence, go ahead. Keep going. That was great, Paul. I agree with you completely.
No, absolutely. And definitely one thing that I just want to point out, this can really help out if you as a player understand what you kind of want your TTPs to be. It'll help you build out your backstory. Almost every single game that I go through and that I play and I roll up a character in, I go ahead and I choose the soldier background. And the reason for it isn't because I'm not trying to like put myself into, a hole, or, pigeonhole myself into a specific thing. It's because I know that because of my personal profession and everything, I'm going to bring that knowledge into the game. And so and there's nothing more frustrating than when you're a very experienced player and you run into, a troll and you have to pretend like, oh, I keep hitting the troll while it's down. I keep hitting the troll while it's down. And you have to like pretend like you don't know to use fire in order to fully kill it. That's where stuff gets frustrating. And so that's some of the things that you can think about is that, if you kind of think about your metagame knowledge, figure out a way to just justify it in game. So I go through and I choose the soldier background. I choose, oh, hey, I was an apprentice, to a general. I was, any of these things. So that way, when I bring in my real life experience and my real life, aspects to the game, I'm not worried about going through and having a running into, the DM saying, but you don't know that, And the other thing is it also gives you, and we all know that the name of Dungeons and Dragons is really, how do I justify doing this? And that's one of the things that you can definitely think about as you go through and as you play and as you get more experience going through and doing this stuff is like, hey, how do I go through and how can I justify my knowledge to kind of working this stuff? And how can I make my backstory more rich, in order to do that? As we kind of get back to our troop leading procedures here, one of the things after you've received your mission, after you've received your quest, and after you've identified like, okay, what's the end state look like that we can consider this quest complete, or what's our goal and stuff like that. To me, the issue of the warning order, that those first set of instructions is, hey, how do we gather the gaps, or how do we gather the information that we know we're missing? If you have an NPC that's acting strangely, hey, how do we figure out how to actually understand what this person's motive is? If it is, hey, we're going to go raid this fortress, how do we understand, hey, what things do we need to have in order to actually go through and raid this fortress? That is kind of what you can think of instead of that an issue or warning order saying, hey, we're not going to go through, we're not going to run into the Duke's mansion right now, and steal all the stuff. How do we go through and maybe figure out, hey, what's the servant schedule look like for the Duke's mansion? Hey, so we go over and we think about that old fortress that we need to go through and raid. Hey, how long ago? What things can we expect? What different, what people are in that area that we might be able to gather information of? Those are definitely some aspects in the issue of the warning order that you can think about to help fill those gaps in information for you guys to actually make your plan. And from there, you make your tentative plan. And this is generally like, hey, let's come up with a very loose idea that we can all agree on pretty quickly. Your tentative plan shouldn't be super in-depth into it. It should very much be like, sometimes it's just like, hey guys, hey, let's just go to the end first. Let's agree to get to this next step. And then we can figure out, how we want to approach that from there. What are some of the tactics that you guys use when you're going through and making your tentative plan? It's like, hey guys, we don't need to figure out step 11. Let's just get to step 2 so we can start moving.
I just want to do something real quick because it is 11 o'clock. And we got some more stuff to do, right, Lawrence? We got a little more to dig into, right, Paul?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got like 4 more.
we should do part 2.
Okay.
I think you should come back.
Okay.
Because let's finish off this section. And then I think people are enjoying this. Yes, it feels like it to me from interactions and such like that. I think people are enjoying this. And what I want to do also is I want to post up these little outlines that you did in the Discord and in the Facebook page, so that people can get access to these, so that they could actually share them with their players and maybe help their players to grow, which I think would be magnificent. But let us go for a few more minutes. I don't think people will mind. And finish this section, and then we'll stop, and then we'll do part 2.
Absolutely. So one of the things, I'm going to transition just a little bit. So just because in this section, as we're kind of going through these like troop leading procedures, they can get pretty exhaustive. I want to go through and point out, especially a point that Paul and I kind of had as we were talking pre-stream, that I think is pretty important. That's leadership in the party. So the military benefits from having a very structured leadership outline. Paul probably is used to a much more strict outline. In special forces, it's much more, while the officer definitely gets the last say in it. The officer is actually the least experienced person on the ODA. All the NCOs actually have way more experience than he does. And so it's one of those things where it ends up being a little bit more of a meritocracy. I want to talk about like, hey, what are the strengths and weaknesses of having leadership in the party? How do you address it? And then how do you kind of go through at your table as either being a DM and a player? How do you kind of work that leadership role either in the absence of or presence?
Paul.
Go ahead and get it, Paul.
So I'm going to kind of default back to my earlier stance of formal leadership in a party is not going to work. People aren't playing the game to be the sidekick or the subordinate. They're playing to be the hero, the protagonist. And a lot of times their own personal like egos can get wrapped up in their gameplay. They don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to feel like they are playing second fiddle. They don't want to be like and I say that, and maybe some people do. Maybe that's like literally they enjoy getting into a party. They want to heal. They want to buff. They want to sit back and be an enabler for everyone else to have a great time. I mean, it all boils down to personalities, and that's what we all are. We are a diverse subsection of potentially neurodivergent individuals who are all attempting to accomplish a collaborative experience. So you have, I would argue, more of an informal, natural, charismatic kind of leader, where there's that player that you respect. And the best leaders are the servants of all. So you can't seem greedy. You can't seem self-centered. You can't seem like you're trying to hog the glory. You have to represent a person who wants to help everybody else. If you are helping them shine, they are much more likely to look to you when it comes time for, well, what is in our best interest? Because I know that's what you have at heart. So you can't necessarily be like, all right, listen up. I'm the leader, guys, and this is what we're going to do. You have to be more like, I'm here to help. And I will, give you the shirt off my back if it means that you can accomplish what we need to have happen. So really that subordinate leader, what is it called? It's not selfless leadership. You know what I'm talking about? The
selfless service,
service leadership,
servant leadership
idea, right? That you serve, that you serve as the leader, not as the order giver, right? You kind of serve your
exactly.
Yes.
Well, and you can really look at, and that's one of the things that's definitely been identified in Dungeons and Dragons, is it does give people the opportunity to develop good leadership, qualities versus, saying like, hey, this person's in charge and their, decisions are final. It gives people the opportunity to go through and learn, hey, how do I actually go through and gain the respect of, these people that I'm playing with? How do I go through, and work those aspects? And that's definitely a benefit that you do get from Dungeons and Dragons, is you get to like learn those qualities of leadership, because there isn't the established, that person's the leader, just default to them.
Yes. And by the way, I'm loving these comments from the chat. I totally agree that leaders often can be more tiebreakers. I also think another thing to encourage your players who are the leaders at the table, especially if you have a table that is not so experienced, is to encourage those couple of leaders at the table to do their best to involve those who are less likely to be outgoing, those who are less likely to be in those kinds of positions, right? Rather than sort of trying to take over. And again, I'm blessed to have a table that I don't have to worry about that at all, right? But even still, as a game master, I also do that. Lawrence, you've seen it many times, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing you. No. All right, listen, we got to stop. It's 11:10. I hope you all love this. The comments were fantastic. We will take this and we will go to part 2. And we'll figure it out with Mandy, but it might even be next week if that would work for you two. This, because I think this was really great. Now the only thing is you gotta come back in costume, Lawrence, because I think it's fantastic. And Paul, your setup is magnificent. Of course, I love Dwarven Forge, right? They are my heroes, right? And of course, you do as well, as you know.
Alphinius could probably set up something pretty great like that, Paul. The problem is it'd all be in plastic tubs, and just kind of
stacked up all around me like walls.
Like, look at all of my dwarven forge inside of these plastic tubs.
Yes, and I did just back the recent Kickstarter for Lowtown, but I was, because of my life, I didn't get to back the Wildlands
Reforged.
Yes, yeah. Which of course I have like all of it already, but there's a few pieces that I still want to get. Yeah. So I got to do a late pledge. I'm gonna have to put that up here pretty quick to do a little late pledge for that. By the way, speaking of that, Stefan Pokorny and Anne, the marvelous couple who Stefan, of course, founded Dwarven Forge. They're two of the people who are going to be in the Geisengax adventure of our wonderful celebrities that are going to be NPCs in Geisengax. We're really excited about it. So Lawrence, kind of keep track of where we stopped, and yes, don't forget, we're almost done now. So make sure, if you didn't do it, hashtag LLL to win the Legends, Lore, and Libations messed up book with the signatures and all of that fun stuff. And hashtag maps. It doesn't have to be a capital A. Hashtag maps to get in for that marvelous Darkenhaven mat that will go behind your screen. So any last questions from the chat or anything, Lawrence, that we want to address before we adjourn?
When are we rolling these?
I'm sorry, Paul.
When are we rolling these?
So we're not doing it today. This is the additive. Win, because before we're done for these two giveaways, there will be a chance for everyone in the Discord and everyone in the Facebook who doesn't watch Goo Morning Zyathé to get one chance to win. That's why the benefit of watching the stream and also entering, you get these multiple entries. So some folks literally, I think for the big Darkenhaven map, had like 12 entries, something 10 to 12 entries. So it really does up your odds, and we all dice people, so we know about odds. So any quick questions, Lawrence?
No, I think we're good. Hey, we appreciate everybody joining us today. Myself and Paul will go through.
Oh yeah, go, Paul, go.
One thing. Hey, join the Discord and join the book club.
Yes.
The more of us that participate in that, the more rich the experience will be for everyone.
And so, start doing a little Discord actual meetup like the old days, right, Paul? You and I and others are gonna get in that Discord and chat a little bit, right?
Oh, I'm up for it.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. Maybe not every week, maybe every other week. I don't know, something like. But you and I and Mandy and a couple of others have to talk about it. But I want to bring that back. I miss those wonderful days when we were only 25 people in all of Gooey Cube fandom, and we would hang out in the Discord and chat. And I miss those days. So we have to bring those back. A little nostalgia for us all.
Paul and I will go through and we'll take a look at just the MDMP process, the troop leading procedures, and I got one last thing called the operation order. We'll probably go through and translate it into role playing, just to help make it a little bit more digestible and stuff like that. So if you want to go through and have those resources, a lot of times it's just good to have like a little checklist.
You know what, Lawrence? Let's do this. We'll post it anyway, whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. But we'll take a little bit of time and we'll put some pictures in there, and we'll make it a little book for players. And maybe we'll even make it just for free. We'll just let game masters be able to download it and be able to give it to their players. I think people would love that. And you and Paul can author it, and we'll give you a little author credit and pay you a little money or give you a little stuff or something like that to compensate you for your efforts.
Zyathé military battle tactics brought to you.
All of a sudden, I will warn you, game masters, they start getting good at this, and you're going to have to up your game too. It is the truth, right? They start getting good at tactics. They start getting good at planning, and you will find yourself having to be a little more innovative and smart in terms of when you're planning your combats.
The truth of it is, though, and this is one of the things, those one of the big points that I wanted to put out. You are not going to have, as a dungeon master, you're not going to have to be better as far as trying to be more sneaky with your creatures or anything like that. You're just going to have to be better as in just providing just a more well thought out world for your players. Yes. And the beauty of it is, Paul and I had this discussion over email. Most of the time, your party is reactive to the campaign. When your party, the dungeon master puts combat in front of them, they're like, "Oh crap, what do I have on hand? Let me go ahead and work with that." It's a great skill to have. When your party knows how to plan and they're planning in front of you as a DM, you become a more reactive DM to the players, which is a beautiful thing because it makes your job so much easier because you're no longer planning a bunch of threads that they're never going to go down. You know exactly where they're going down because they have clear objectives that they want to meet. They have a clear goal and they have a clear pathway. And now all I got to do is just generate up that for them.
Yes.
So definitely,
and as I've said before, always don't place things ahead of time. Place them later. They don't know whether they're there or not there. Don't write up stuff that they never go visit. Write up stuff and be prepared to put it wherever they're going. Right. This is all this stuff. Anyway, we have so much. This was wonderful. I want to say one thing real quick to all of our military friends, to all of our friends who are first responders, who take care of us, who save people, who help people, who protect us. Thank you. My father was a veteran of World War II, and I have incredible respect for what you all have done, and for many, the impacts that it's made on their lives negatively for the rest of their lives because of their service, right? And it is noble, and it is magnificent, and from all of us at the Goo Crew and Gooey Cube, we love you all and appreciate you all so much. So we will redo this, and hopefully everyone loved it, and we'll make this little book, how to be a more more proactive player or something. I don't know. We'll come up with some cool name, and maybe we'll give it away for free.
Awesome. Hey, love everybody. Have yourselves a great Saturday, and we will see you next time. Until then, make sure to stay
sticky.
All right. You guys all take care.
Bye-bye.